Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of A Cure for What Ails You. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Thank you to Risable Games for sponsoring this video, and this is a preview for A Cure for What Ails You. This is a current Kickstarter project. You can check out their link down below right now. It is live, and with that I'm going to jump into what this game is all about. As the name might imply, you are curing patients. Now this is in a time where there is a malady that has come across this area, and you are all playing as different types of healers. Whether you are a pharmacist or a voodoo healer or a charlatan, you are coming in trying to heal these different things that are happening both to people and animals and creatures and things that are all within this town, because it's really spreading and getting worse and worse. Now you are doing this with asymmetric powers. The general play of the game is the same, and we'll go over that first, but I cannot stress enough how asymmetric this game is. I have here the guides for each of the different roles, and a lot of their core actions are all very different. So just keep that in mind, that I'm going to go over both the general play of the game and how one of them plays, and then I'll go over an overview about how all of the other different healers play as. But with that, please keep in mind this is also a prototype copy. Everything is subject to change, but with that, a lot of it is already set up and the mechanics are here, so we are ready to go. Now, looking at the table in front of you, you can see that there are 4 different player boards, and those are the asymmetric players that you will be playing as. This is a game for 2 to 4 players, and each player will be able to choose a completely unique healer to be playing as, such as the Hoodoo Root Doctor, the Charlatan, the Voodoo Mambo, and the Pharmacist. Now, the general pace of play will be the same, that players will be going through different turns, rounds, and cycles throughout the pace of the game, and you'll be curing different patients that are wave 1, 2, 3, and 4, getting increasingly harder to cure these patients, but you'll also be using all of your things available to you to be doing so on your player board. Throughout the game, players are going to triage different patients into their waiting room and then hopefully cure them. When you cure them, you're going to get 5 victory points for each cured patient, and they're going to give you other types of things that will gain victory points as well. In the game, you are gaining money, faith, and clout, and depending on the type of healer that you are, those are going to mean something different to you. So for example, our pharmacist here, he gains 3 victory points at the end of the game for every 1 clout that he has, but for every 1 faith he has, it's just 1 victory point. So you can see where different types of things that you are going for and the different patients that you are healing matters, because the patients will reward you different values of those types of things. Now players are going to play toward an endgame trigger point where you hit a certain wave of how bad these patients are. You're going to finish that current cycle, and then you're going to do that math of figuring out exactly how many victory points you have at the end of the game. Now they're all going to be very, very different, and some of them are completely balanced. For example, our Hoodoo Root Doctor over here has 2, 2, and 2 for both money, clout, and fame, so you can see where for them basically anything goes, and they're trying to heal all patients across the board, whereas for our pharmacist here, they might want to go where the clout is. Now you can see here, those are those 3 resources that I was talking about, and they are awarded toward you when you cure your different patients. So with that, we'll go over the pace of play of the game and what you will need to do to be able to cure these patients and hopefully have them go home. Throughout the game, players are going to be drawing these ingredient cards and these administration methods. You're going to need to match the administration method as well as the different ingredients to cure these patients, unless you are able to use some of these abilities at your disposal to make substitutions to be able to cure them, but it may be more or less difficult depending on what you're doing. But for the easiest example here, we have a wave 1 patient who is feeling rather phlegmy, and to cure this patient, you would have to take a cure action and have them waiting in your waiting room, and then you would be able to take a nebulizer, which we luckily have one here for him, and then you need a pleurisy and a horny goatwheat, but you also need them in that particular color, so we need yellow and purple, and lucky for us here, I believe we have it, yes. So here is one of the ingredients, and here is the other ingredient. But that's not it yet. You need all of that just to be able to try to cure this patient, and then once you do so, you are going to roll a d20 to see what happens with your cure attempt. Now for us here, we just rolled a 10, which is pretty good but not great. With this, we are going to add a severity. So this means that it's going to be harder to heal this patient, because the more severity tokens that they get, they are going to die eventually once they have 4. but also that means that we would not have successfully gotten this attempt. Now, there are different things that we would have been able to do, but let's say we did this before this started. We wouldn't have been able to do it after that die roll, which gave us the result of 10, but if before that die roll we decided to use a prescription here, then we could plan to use our strychnine. With strychnine, we get to roll a die, so we can have our strychnine over here, and we'll say that this isn't here yet. We will roll a die. 19, that's great for strychnine, because on a 1 to 5, it would make a -2 to our rolls to cure this patient. However, on a 6 through 20, we get a +2 to our rolls instead. But you can see where this would also cost 2 coins to be able to use this ability. However, now with our result of 10 plus 2, we would have had a 12 and cured our patient. And with that 12, if you do, you gain a +1 clout reward, which has our pharmacist working toward his clout, which he would then want. And when healing this patient, you would also gain 3 money, 2 clout, and 1 faith, and then they would go into a home designated area where you will be able to score 5 victory points for them at the end of the game. Now, one other thing that we could have done if we didn't have our strychnine available, or if we were too afraid of how risky that could have been to use it, there's also a reroll token here that you are able to flip over and use, and that allows you to reroll once when you're doing this. Another thing that you are able to do is that because you are using the exact ingredients needed for this cure, you're allowed a free reroll as well. So in that example, if we hadn't used our strychnine, then we could have used a free reroll for that as well, or even if we had used our strychnine and it was the -2, we could have rerolled to hopefully have a better result in that situation. Now, when a natural 1 is rolled, the patient dies. This isn't great. The patient then goes to your morgue for this entire cycle, and then after that, they will move on to a graveyard. So when patients die, obviously it's not good, but you do as a player have a ability to use a dark act. Now, each of the dark acts are different for the 4 different healers, but for example, here with the pharmacist, you can destroy a dead patient, place cadaver token on the board, additional +1 perfect cure bonus per cadaver. So as soon as you start adding cadavers here into your board with the dead patients, you are able to have a +1 cure bonus. Now, this is a competitive game, but it is possible for all players to lose the game, and that happens if there are too many dead patients. If too many people are dying, then you are not able to win at all, and the game just ends. Now, this will happen when there are 2 times the number of players +1, anything that's over that. If there are at least that many people in the graveyard, then the game is over for everyone and all players will lose. So this is a reason for you to try to work together a little bit, because if you have players with severity on their patients and they're dying, that may be really bad, because that could cause you to lose the game even if you're playing very well. Now, throughout the game, there's going to be this dial here, and this is how you're going to track the different rounds. So every player is going to take a turn, and that will be the first round of the first cycle, and then after that, the dial will be moved over to the 2. Then, during that round, all players will again take an action and it will move forward, meaning that all players will take 4 actions each before the cycle completes. Now, you'll be taking these actions trying to heal the different patients, and a few things that you'll be able to do are purchase or resource cards. Both your ingredients and your administration methods are resource cards, and they will cost you 1 resource of any type when you are purchasing them. So, for example, my pharmacist here, where faith is worth only 1 victory point at the end of the game, you may choose to use your starting faith to pay for cards when you are doing that, and any faith that you may gain throughout the game, because that's how you are going to gain additional cards, and on top of that, at the end of every cycle, you will draw 3 cards as well. Another thing that you are able to do is exchange cards at a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you have 2 that are the same, you're able to exchange them for 1 either from the market, the top card of the deck, or you are also able to take from the top card of the discard pile as well. Another thing that you're able to do is that all players have a purge token here, and you're able to use your purge token once per cycle. When you use this, you'll flip it over, and you are able to refresh either the ingredient or administration method row, depending on which one you want to do, but that is something that players are able to do to have a bit of a fresh start to start working toward these different waves, because all of the patients are placed in waves 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they get increasingly more difficult to heal as the different maladies get worse. Now, we already went over the patient actions, which is triaging, which is bringing them into your waiting room, attempting to cure them, and then they'll go either home or to your morgue. And then there's also the Dark Act, which you can use on either patients in your own morgue or in the graveyard, but not from other players' morgues. The final thing is your role actions, which some of them I went over, but here you can see that the Pharmacist is able to use the over-the-counter method, which would give them a +1 faith reward. It costs them clout to do so. And this is when you're able to add things like alcohol, cocaine, or morphine to the different patients. If you place a morphine token on a patient, you're able to substitute for a severity token, meaning that a patient that has morphine on it, they can have that instead of a severity token because, again, those will kill your patients. However, any patient with 3 morphine tokens will die as well. Now, there are also different things like making compounds, which would give a +1 money reward. For example, infusion. With this one, you can combine the color and substance from 2 ingredients, meaning that you would be able to mix and match 2 ingredient cards in your hand, and it counts as an exact match if both were warm or cool. So that is a way that you are able to do that and have an exact match, meaning that you would have a free reroll when curing that patient, which is extremely important. Now, one other thing I didn't note, which actually would have really helped us in that situation as well, is that this doctor has a perfect cure ability as well, which is +1 curing bonus when using an exact match. So in that example in the very beginning, we could have rolled a 10 and been completely fine because we do have a +1 curing bonus. Now, we've talked a lot about our Pharmacist friend here, but just to go over what the other healers play like, the Hoodoo Root Doctor is going to be using this mojo bag, and they're going to be using that to hopefully increase their odds of curing their patients. So that's something that they will be manipulating, and on top of that, they also have hoodoo tricks. So the tricks may be something that they discern that their patient has, and that's something that they're also able to cure their patients from. Now, our Charlatan here basically will use anything they can to make you feel better, but it may not be exactly what you need. For example, they have things like snake oil and magic mist, but they also have elixirs. So they have things that will increase their rewards if they're able to heal their different patients, but they can be very risky because they are pretty dangerous things to use while being healed. We also have our Voodoo Mambo over here, and the Voodoo Mambo is able to use the powers of their rainbow snake, and you can see with both the white and the black snake, they're able to use those abilities to cure their patients. Now, this healer in particular, once they are fully devoted with their rainbow snake, that player can call on the Baron Semity, which can have guaranteed healing, which can be extremely strong, but you do have to work your way up toward it. Now that you understand the general pace of play of how the game works and what players are working toward, I think a lot of the charm in the game is going to be these different patients that you are trying to heal. So, for example, we have different people like wedding proposal worries or too many teeth, but you also have the bearers are terrified and you are trying to calm the different bearers as well. So you can see where really everything is being affected in this world, and if we look at some of the patients that are toward the end here, you can see that these are wave 4 patients that have really been affected, and we have help save the Voodoo Rougarou, the Moon Cult demands a sacrifice, bodies rise from the swamp, and Hellmouth. So things are just really escalating, you know, from the bears are terrified straight to Hellmouth, and you can see just how difficult this is to do. Overall, A Cure for What Ails You does the theme extremely well. It's very charming with the different things that you're interacting with, such as things like morphine and strychnine, but you also have, you know, snake oil and things like that. And something that is the most charming about this game is these different player cards. There are this many for you to be able to use throughout the different waves, and you only play with a certain amount depending on the number of players. So there's a lot of replayability in this game, and as I noted, things just escalate. There are some really funny names in here, the art is really great, and some really bad things can happen that it's very, very fun to engage with all of these, and there's a huge amount of replayability, especially with how asymmetric the different powers are as well. All of the different healers are going to feel very unique and different as you're playing through them, so each play is going to feel very, very different. Thank you to Referral Games for sponsoring this preview. You can check out their Kickstarter link down below to see everything that they have planned for the game. I am Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching today's video. I will see you all next time. Bye!